What's up, everybody? My name is Shannon, and I am still waiting for my Satyr, and today we are talking about Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. So if you guys will remember, a couple weeks back, I read Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys, and I was, completely in love with it, just all of that kind of stuff. Well, on Litsy, I saw somebody talking about it, and I was just like, oh my god, yeah, I love that book, and they're like, oh, have you ever read Between Shades of Grey by her? And I was like, no, do I need to read this book? And they're just like, oh my god, it's totally freaking out about it. That's what I love about Litsy. Everybody there wants to talk about books, everybody wants to geek out, so I feel so accepted over there. But I checked it out and it blew me away. This is probably the most beautiful, well-written story I have ever read, and I immediately, when I finished the audiobook, I went out and bought it on thrift books because I'm like, I need to own this book. I need to have it in my hands because it was just so moving. And what it's about, I think it's supposed to be read before Salt to the Sea, technically, but since I read that one first, Joanna, who was one of the main characters, I was always talking about her cousin and how she was afraid that she had done something to make her cousin and her family a target. And Between Shades of Grey is about that cousin, and she's always talking about Joanna as well and wondering what's going on with her. And in this story, we see that the main character, Lena, and her family are immediately arrested by the Russian police. They're just thrown onto a train with all of these other people. They don't know where their father is, and nobody knows what's going on or why they're there. And they're on this train for a very, very long time until all of a sudden they end up in a Siberian work camp where they're going to be there for an indefinite amount of time. And just all of these Russians are just yelling at them and calling them names, and they don't really understand what all they're saying because obviously they're Lithuanian and they don't speak Russian, and it's just a very, very confusing time. And while they're being treated like criminals, they're also trying to force these people to sign a document declaring themselves as a criminal to Russia and saying that they agree to serve for 25 years in this work camp. It's just absolutely insane. And the crazy part is, I'm pretty sure that this book follows Lena over 2 years or just about 2 years. It's kind of hard to tell because she doesn't always know when the date is, but the entire time she's leaving clues for her father to come find her because she believes that some way, somehow, her father's going to get to her and her family's going to be reunited. And she does that through drawing because she can't obviously write anything down because people are going to immediately know. So she does it through little things. She draws things and she'll leave it in places where she hopes that eventually it'll get back to her father. And eventually she takes a lot of her drawings and buries them in a jar, and it's found 12 years later, and it tells this untold story of what happened to just thousands of people, and it's history that we don't know. I wasn't told, any of this in school. I didn't know about any of this going on in Russia, in Latvia, in Lithuania, none of that stuff. And that's because we don't talk about it here in America, but also because these people are terrified to talk about what they've been through because they are still afraid that the Russian police might come for them. They're still afraid that even though, they did their time, they worked in those camps, they were in those prisons, it could still happen to them again. And so this history is told through art and literature, and it's told in ways that won't get them noticed. And what's amazing, at the end of this book, the author talks about why she wrote it. And it's because she's Lithuanian and she wanted to know more about her history, and she actually visited her family and she wanted to know why there weren't any pictures of her grandfather. And it's because he was suspected of being, an accessory and helping people, escape and all this and that and the other thing. And he had to disappear, and her entire family had to burn any trace of him and just forget he ever existed. And it's amazing. It's just these people just disappear from history, and then we don't get to know anything about it. And it's just this book just ripped my heart out. It was so gripping. I was so into it the entire time. I loved it from start to finish. And what I really loved about it is that it talks about humanity, and it talks about, not even knowing what freedom is or how important it is until it's taken away from you. And I feel like this is really demonstrated through Lena's mother, because the entire time her mother knows, like what's going on. She knows that, something's happened, and we do later find out that she knows exactly why they've been taken and what happened to Lena's cousins and all of that. And throughout all of that, throughout everything that's happening to her, throughout everybody being cruel to her, she is nice to everyone. She always shares her food. She always shares anything that she can. She'll get information from people. She's always trying to help the sick. She is just doing everything possible to help those around her. And later on, that does get paid back. And it's amazing because Lena she never understands this. She's just like, why is my mother being so nice to these people? And you see later on that it affected all of them. It even affected a Russian soldier into helping them get information about what happened to their father. And it's just so unbelievably moving. It was so breathtaking. We see through Lena's brother what happens to this little boy who has to grow up really fast, and he gets really angry at the world. And it just goes through all of these emotions, and it's so, I don't know how many times I can say it. It's just so amazing. It blew me away. And Ruta Sepetys is definitely, I think, one of my favorite authors who just writes historical fiction. It was written so beautifully, and this story just moved me so much. The only other thing that has ever come close to the way I felt during this book was Life as We Knew It, which is kind of the same kind of situation. You're basically in a, make it or break it scenario, and it's told through one family just trying to survive. And that's really what it comes down to with Lena, is that she makes a decision that she is going to survive this. She is going to come out on the other side of it alive. And it's that determination that helps her get through, because at so many points she could have, just let herself die. She could have just given in, but she didn't. She persevered and just kept going. And I love stories like this. I want more stories from this time period, from this era. I want to know so much more about what was going on there, because it's so complicated. It's called Between Shades of Grey because it exists between that gray area. It's not all black and white, and it's not even all just gray. It's just so much in between, and there really was no good guy. There was nowhere for them to turn except for to each other and just trying to survive. And if you can't tell, this book definitely gets an A+ from me. I highly recommend it. I do think that you're supposed to read it before Salt to the Sea, but they are standalones, so you could really read them in any order you want them to, because it's still just fun how connected they are. And with this, I knew what happened to Joanna, so the whole time I knew what was going on. But I guess if you read this first and then you read Salt to the Sea, you know what happened to Lena, and so you kind of feel her guilt building up in her. So it's really, really cool. I highly recommend that you check these books out. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to hit that like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe so you can talk books with me every Monday. That is everything got for you today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye.